The second hara is, this is a little bit me'inyan le'inyan ba'oisa inyan. So we have a shayla, harei olai mincha. According to the Chachamim, yavi eza sheyirtza. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it has to be dafka the minchas hasoiles. The Mishnah said, Shimi yuchedesh eben menachas. The Gemara brought a brayso and said that Rabbi Yehuda explained, or the Tan explained, I'll leave it to Rabbi Yehuda, Tana hayulu pasach be'akos of tchila. Because if you open up and you look at the first of the 5 menachas that are mentioned in Vayikra Perek Beis, it's the Minchas HaSoilos. And the Gemara asks the kasha, if somebody says, Arei olai oila, like Rabbi Yehuda, you should look at which oil is mentioned first, and you know which one is mentioned first, the Ben Bakar. So you should have to bring the Ben Bakar. Or if somebody says, Arei olai oila min atzayin, you should look at which one of the tzayin is mentioned first, and you know which one is mentioned first, it's the keves. So you should have to bring a sheep. Or if somebody says, Arei olai oila min ha'oifos, you should have to bring the Torah ahead of the Bnei Yoina, and you don't find ever that there should be such a Rabbi Yehuda. If Rabbi Yehuda holds Haylu Pasach by Akas of Tchila, that is a Koveya, then l'chayr, how come when it comes to the Oila you don't find that? And for that reason the Gemara came around, and the Gemara said that Enochinami Haylu Pasach by Akas of Tchila is just an Amanik, it's a Simen Ba'alma. It's a way to remember it's a Minchas HaSoilos, and the reason it's a Minchas HaSoilos is because it's Miyuchedesh Eben Menachas, and the reason it's Miyuchedesh Eben Menachas is the only one of the Menachas that doesn't have this Shem Levi. I saw in the Megadim Chadashim, in one of his earlier shtiklach in Sefer Vayikra from Hagoyin Hagadol, Rab David Yoel Weisshlita, he brings a fascinating Maramakim tucked away. It's a drasha that Rabbi Yaakov Emden gave. It's printed in the Sefer Hakshurim LeYaakov. So if you have the Sefer Hakshurim LeYaakov, it's page Kuf Lamed Beis. It's a long drasha. And Rabbi Yaakov Emden in that drasha says an unbelievable chiddush. He says that in the event that somebody had an obligation to bring a korban chatas, it was Mechal Shabbos b'shoigig, Kshavi Beis HaMikdash, he has a chiyuv to bring a chatas shmeina. We know the Torah says that a regular yachid has 2 choices when it comes to bringing the korban chatas. He could bring either a kispa or a seira, right? In terms of what animal and exactly how a chatas was brought, there's a whole masechta dedicated to that. It's called Masechta Sarius. It's a masechta that's miyot hakamus, but it's roiv ha'echos, not the easiest masechta in Shas. But the bottom line is that when it comes to the regular pedestrian, a regular yachid that is chayiv to bring a korban chatos, so you can pick. You can bring either a kispa, or if you want to bring a seira, that's something you can bring as well. Stating that, says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, that I hold that this person that's bringing the korban chatos should bring lichatchila the seira, and only afterwards, if he has no option to bring the seira, then he should bring the kispa. Why? Says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, because you look in the Psukim and Parshas Vayikra, when the Torah mentions the korban chatos, the Torah first mentions the option of the seiras izin, and then afterwards it mentions v'im keves yavi korban the chatos nekevet tmima yivien. Being that it mentions first the seira and then the kifsa, so it's for that reason it should be done dafka in that order. As also for Yaakov Emden. Yaakov Emden went weiter in this drasha, and he said, I'm going to tell you even more. In the event that somebody said Harei olai shlamim, and a shlamim we know is shalem, right? You can bring it in many different options. And certainly you can bring it in the form of a keves or in the form of an aze. Says Rabbi Yaakov Emden, you should bring it lechatchila in a keves and only b'diavad in an aze. Why? He says, because I'm reading the psukim. V'menatzoin karbanai, as it relates to the shlamim, zachar in a keva, tami yakrivenu, im keves u'makrives karbani v'ikravaysa lefnei Hashem. 10 psukim later, v'im is karbonoi v'ekriva l'fnei Hashem. We mentioned first the keves and then the is, and it's for that reason it should be done in that order. So Rabbi Yaakov Emden in this drasha said a chiddush that when it comes to the chatos, kispa is seira, first the seira then the kispa. When it comes to the shlamim, as it relates to the shaila of keves versus soir, or the zachar or the nekeva, the keves has the milo. Why? He says just look at the seder apsukim. In the seder apsukim by the chatos, it mentions first the seira, and the Seder Apsukim as it relates to the Shlamim, it mentions first the Keves, and you go basa the Seder, and it's for that reason, that's the way that you're supposed to do it. Now, at first glance, this Rabbi Yaakov Emden is an unbelievable chiddush, because we have a Gemara, where the Gemara seemed to touch on this inyan. Now, the Gemara never discussed the chatos, and the Gemara never discussed the shlamim. What the Gemara discussed was the mincha and the oila. But at the end of the day, the Gemara entertained the tzad of hoilu Pasach by Akasav Tchila. Right, the Gemara had such a Havamina, but at the end of the day, the Gemara fell off of it, and the Gemara was Doichet, stating that Zok Rabbi Yaakov Emden this Chiddush, and this is something that he talks about very much by Arichas in that Rosh. So Rabbi David Yoel Weiss, Kedarke Bakodesh, with his incredible Bekiyas, knew this Rabbi Yaakov Emden, and it's Zeichen the Su, and he's mefalful, he's meirich in it a little bit. Again, a Chiddush at Muschorishin in light of our Sugya, it's a Chiddush in light of other Sugyas as well. Ayin Sham. But there's one Dover Nifla that he's mitzayin, and that long shmuz, and that is that what Rabbi Yaakov Emden said as it relates to the chatas, and that is that when it comes to the chatas, you have two choices, to bring either the kispa or the seira. You should bring first the seira and then the kispa because it's mentioned first. The emes is, he says it's a mefurish Zohar HaKadosh. The Zohar is in the Hashmatis on Bereshis, Daf Reish Samach Amid Aleph. The Zohar says as follows. The Zohar says that if kadchav bekulum mitzvahs loisasei the isbu kares, if somebody goes ahead and he's over one of the loisasei sheyesh by kares, seiras izin boyi lekarvo lechatchila. Lechatchila, you should go ahead and you should bring a seiras izin. Elo kad lesle, but if he doesn't have it, yakriv kisba, he should bring a kisba. So he said that as it relates to that chelik of Rabbi Yaakov Emden's Chiddush, it's a mefurish Zohar. The Gemara maybe is a little bit not so mashma that way, but it's a Zohar Kodesh in the Hashmatis, and the Zohar is mamish mefurish that lechatchila seira season boy lekarva lechatchila literally elokad lesle the yakriv kizba. It's only if you don't have it, then there would be an inyan to bring it. Then there would be an inyan to bring it as a kizba. The emes is Rabbi David Yoel Weiss said that if you look in the Lashon Apsukim, it's very mashma that way. He says, why? He says, if you look by the Korban Chatas, it says, V'm nefesh achas techeta b'shkaga me'am ha'aretz b'asoisa achas mi'mitzvahs Hashem asher lo yisei osena v'oshem. Oy hoida elov chatosei asher chata v'hevi karbonoi seiras izin tmima nekeva al chatosei asher chata. Now I'm skipping. V'im keves yavi karbonoi lechatos nekeva tmima yivienu. By the keves, it says, V'im keves yavi karbonoi. By the seiras izin, it doesn't say v'im. It says, V'hevi karbonoi seiras izin. If you're not sure it's a diak, look at the Asham. By the Asham, it says, V'im minat soin karbonoi lezevach shlomim l'Hashem. Not the Asham, the Shlomim. V'im minat soin karbonoi lezevach shlomim l'Hashem. Zocher in the cave Tomi Yakrivenu. Im keves u'makrives karbonoi v'ikrivoy lefnei Hashem. V'im eiz karbonoi v'ikrivoy lefnei Hashem. By the other karbonis, every time we mention one of the options, we always preface that option with the word v'im. As opposed to when it comes to the chatos, the kispa we preface with ve'im, but the seiras izim we don't preface with ve'im. It's because the chatchila, like the Zohar HaKadosh says, it's supposed to be the seiras izim. Ve'im, keves, umakriv, okay? Then it should be a nekeva, it should be a tmima, that's the way you're supposed to do it. But al kaponim, as it relates to what you're supposed to be doing lechatchila, this is what you're supposed to be doing lechatchila. Toich dvarav, in this shtickle, the Magadim Chadashim says, take a look at the chibur called Kotche Yecheskel. That's printed in the back of the Sefer Meir Enei Chachamim Madura Kama Simin Yud Zayin. I looked up the Zohar HaKadosh that Reb David Yoel Weiss quotes in the Hashmatis Daf Reish Samach Amud Aleph. So in our Chabura we know that Reuven Margolis wrote a Pirush. She wrote a commentary on the Zohar HaKadosh. It's called Nitzotzei Zohar, and it's really like a Mesiris Hashas on the Zohar. And on this Zohar, the Reb Reuven Margolis also says, he's Mitzayin, he says, take a look at this kuntris called Kotche Yecheskel. Take a look at the Kotche Yecheskel on the back of the Meir Enei Chachamim Madura Kama Simin Yud Zayin. So the two Sinais, the two Bekim Gedolim, both sent us to the same address. So I don't know about you, but if Reb Reuven Margolis and Reb David Yoel Weiss, Lahavdol Ben Chaim L'Chaim, send me to the same place, I make a beeline. Baruch Hashem happened to have the Sefer Meir Enei Chachamim Madura Kama, and I took a look at this shtickle, and was steht es azoi. So who was the Kotche Yecheskel? So the Meir Enei Chachamim Kiyudua was Meir Yechiel Halevi, the Ostrof Tzegoyin, who, if you know, was one of the great Goyinim in Poland, one of the greatest Rebbes, but he was a Goyin Olam, Kiyudua. After he passed away, his son, Rabbi Cheskel Halevi, he became the next Ofshchofster Rebbe, and in the back of that Meir Ein Chachamim, they have some shtiklach Torah from him. So in Siman Yud Zayin, it says, Be'inyan Kedimas Kifsa L'Se'ira. This is what he's talking about. And he starts off, B'Zayir HaKadosh Parshas Bereishis. He didn't bring Rabbi Yaakov Emden. He started with the Zayir. In the Hashmata, it's Mavur, an unbelievable chiddush. And that is, that even though there's a sugya in Shas, when it comes to Kedima, Vasir, versus Akeves, Harei Alai Oyla, and the sugya of Menachis, but the Zayir HaKadosh state Klora Diburim, and that is that when it came to the Karban Chatos, first you're supposed to bring the Sira season, and only afterwards, if you don't have the Sira season, so then a B'diavad you should go ahead and you should bring a Kifsa. So he says a few beautiful Zachen. Now this whole shtickle is a very Polish, a pilpul shtickle, which is mamish, he's tying in every single sugya command and kachim. That's almost not a guzma. You have to see what's going on over there. It's way beyond the scope. But the bottom line is, just a few ha'aras. One ha'ara is, he says, take a look at the Rambam in Hilchas Tmidim Umusafim. This is in Perik Tes Halacha Zayin. So the Rambam over there says as follows. What would be if there's a kohen standing in the Beis HaMikdash, and there's two people that have to bring a Karban Chatas, and one person brings a Se'ira, and the other person brings a Kizba. Says the Rambam, U'Se'iras Yachid Koidem Es LaKifsa. Then in a situation like this, you bring first the Se'ira, then the Kifsa. Afal Pisha Shneim Chatas, like the Rambam. Even though they're both Chatois. Meaning, I know there's different halachis and kedima when it comes to different types of karbanos, but this is a chatas and this is a chatas, and these are two options, the two ways you could do it. So mehecha one should have kedima over the other. Says the Rambam Mishtakal Torah. Sha'asiira ru'uya lavai ala krisus shemevian aleo chatas v'hakifsa ina ba al shigagas avodah zarah. Take a look at the Kesef Mishnah. Kesef Mishnah explains the Rambam as follows. He says, we know that a regular Chatas Yachid could be either a Kifsa or a Se'ira. But when it comes to Avodah Zarah, the Torah says it has to be Dafka the Se'ira. So being that the Se'ira always had to be the one for Avodah Zarah, so he says, Meris, there's some Maila, there's some Toisefes, Madrega, that you see the Se'ira has over the Kifsa, and it's for that reason, Zok the Rambam, if the Kohen has a choice to bring two Chatois, one is a Se'ira, one is a Kifsa, there's no reason that one should have a Kedim over the other. Now the Makar to this Rambam is a sugi and Hoyri stuff. You'd give him a lion shot. But the bottom line is, this is what the Rambam says. Said Rabbi Cheskel Halevi me Ostrovtza. He says, if you take a look at the Rambam, two Rambams later, in Halacha Tes, there the Rambam's talking about where you have a Kohen, and the Kohen has a bunch of different karbonis, different animals that are in front of him. And there's a question, which animal should come first? And the Rambam says, right? A bunch of oilers, a bunch of shlamim, a bunch of anything. And you have all these different animals. What should you bring first? Ketzad krevim, haparim koidmen le'elim, shekein nisrabu b'nesachim. Ve'elim koidmen le'kvasim, shekein nisrabu b'nesachim. U'kvasim koidmen le'seirin, shekein nisrabu be'emurim. Ha'omer koidem lekevesh, abba imay, u'shtei alechem koidem l'shnei kvasim, etc., Einstein. Over here the Rambam says mefurish, u'kvasim koidem l'seirin, shekein nisrabu be'emurim. Two halachas earlier, the Rambam said, if a kohen's standing and two chatois came to him, and you have a shaila, which one to bring? You bring the sira over the kifsa. The Rambam was sois and mishnasai, two halachas from each other. And the Kesef Mishnah muches with this a little bit. Zogt, the Ostrovtza, Goyin, Rabbi Cheskel, Lev me Ostrovtza, that l'chayre yesh loima, you have to say, it's part, dosh in Rambam, I'm the Kesef Mishnah, you have to say, what's the chilik? Here the Rambam was handling two chatois. There it was handling any other carbon. Chatas is different. Why is chatas different? So the Rambam gave a term. The Rambam said, because the seir of the chatas you see is more effective. Why should chatas be different? If ordinarily the keves comes first, because there's more imurim when it comes to the keves, and that's the reason for it to have a kedima. Why when it comes to the chatas is it different? Zogt yesh shloima. You know what the makar to the Rambam was? The makar was the Zayir HaKadosh. Al zeh nemar harambam v'azayar. The makar was the Zayir HaKadosh. The Zayir HaKadosh that said that the yochid alein, when the yochid came to bring his carbon, there's an Indian to bring first what? First the seir and then the keves. Like the pasuk says, the heavy sirasiz of him keves. Oh, but l'chatchil, this is what you're supposed to do. So if when it comes to the yochid alein, you see there's a maila of bringing the seir season. So when it comes to the kohen, it's two different people that are bringing it, and you're not sure which one you're supposed to be bringing. So it's mistaber, it's yitachin, that when it comes to you doing that, this is the way that you should do it as well. So he said that it could be, this is the yishuv, this is pshat, and this is pshat, in this Rambam. Makes another hafel digadik in this shtickle. He says that if you take a look in the Psukim, so we just mentioned the pasuk that says very clearly that when it comes to the chatas, first the Torah says the seiras izim, right? The Torah says, and then only several psukim later, he says, take a look at the carbon oil v'yored. By the carbon oil v'yored, the pasuk says as follows: "V'nefesh kisechet v'shama kol olav who aid oira oyada im lo yagid v'nas avoin oy nefesh asher tiga b'chol davar tamei oy benivlas chayit meya oy benivlas beimet meya oy benivlas sheretz tamei v'nel mimenu v'hu tamei v'yashem oy v'chulu." All the different types of people that are shnayich to bring in the carbon oil v'yored. So the pasuk says, "V'hoya ki yeshem la'achas me'ela v'hisvada asher chata olav v'hivi es hashamoy." He has to bring his carbon. So what's the carbon that he brings? Ve'hevi es hashamoy l'Hashem al chatosay asher chata nikeva min hatzoin kispa oy seiras izum l'chatos. By the carbon oil of Yored steht verkehrt. Over there it says first the kispa and then it says the seira. So he said that take a look at the Zohar HaKadosh again. The Zohar HaKadosh said as follows. The Zohar says, V'sir l'chatas l'kabel knesses Yisrael d'manu min abrechon. Says kadchav bekulu mitzvahs loisasei de isbu kares. If you find a person that was over one of the loisasei sheyesh by kares, seiras izin boy lekar v'lechatchila elokad lesle de yakriv kispa. If a person is chayiv to be a chatas, why? Because he was chav bekulu mitzvahs loisasei de isbu kares. The carbon oil of Yored is given a chatas, but the oil of Yored has nothing to do with kares. Because the oil of Yored is true for someone who is oivish for his bitui. The oil of Yored is true for different halachas. And being that over there, there's no din that it has to be for chayve kristos and under sort chatas. It's dafka the chatas that's being brought for the chayve kristos. That's where it's true. But the carbon oil of Yored was hot nicht mit chayv. Now, grad the Tumas Mikdash v'Kadosh has its tzad kares, but the Ramban al Atayr, his Mitzayin already says that it's not included in the regular chayve krisis. Ayin shom. But the bottom line is that when it comes to the chatas that's being brought for chayve krisis, that chatas there Dr. Zohar HaKadosh the seir izim comes first. But other chatos, what's the other chatos? It's the oil of Yored. There's nothing else. When it comes to the oil of Yored, over there, fakert, over there you don't have that pay. There's Dr. Mameduyik in the psukim. As when it comes to the chayve krisis, there the Torah went out of its way, and the Torah said that first the heavy carbonate sirasism only for im kevas yavi carbonate. But fakert, when it comes to the oil of Yored, so then already the Torah says kizba oise iras isam lechatos, and the hezbad varim is the Rambam. The hezbad is that Rambam, where the Rambam says that when it comes to the chayve krisos, being that you find by chayve krisos avodah zara, it's tafke the seir. So that's why there's a mile of the seir. Oil of Yored has nothing to do with avodah zara. It's a different sugi of chatas. Over there, the diak in the zoyer, which really comes from the diak in the psukim, mamish l'shoinei azov. This is the way he went ahead and he was mevayer this in. Then he goes ahead and he says, "Let me tell you a little bit of a svara. What would be the reasons?" Okay, the Rambam gave a tam. He says, "I'm going to want to be moisef and neufach." What would be maybe the reason why there's a milo with the siras izim over the Kizba? So he tells to a Gemara Masechta Soita Daf Lamed Beis Amud Beis. This Gemara is a classic. The Gemara says Gufa Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rab Shimon ben Yochai. It's another Gemara about Rab Shimon ben Yochai. Mipnei matik nu tefila b'lachash. Why is it the Chazal and Masakin that Shemona Esrei should be b'lachash? Shaloi levayesh is over avera. The reason is not to embarrass over avera. Because we know the chatas, the shchitas betzafin, and the oila, the shchitas betzafin. And being that the Torah, you see, went out of its way to put the chatas and the oil in the same place, Torah must be looking to protect over avera. What does that mean? That means if someone had to bring a chatas, if his carbon would have to be in a special place in the Azara, everybody would chap, he has to bring a chatas. It'd be embarrassing. So not to embarrass the over avera, we say you're going to bring the chatas in the same place you bring the oila. Nobody's going to ever know you're bringing a chatas. Maybe what you're bringing is an oil. But the Gemara says, "V'loy, is that true?" There's no way to be mavchem between the chatas and an oila. V'ikadamim, dam chatas l'mayla, v'dam oila l'mata. The dam went in a different place. The Gemara says, "Hasam koyin with the other." Only the koyin knows. Right? You have hippo with the koyin. He's not going to tell anybody. So over there, you have nothing to worry about. But the oilam doesn't know, and as a result, you're not going to be embarrassed. What about the fact that the chatos is in a keva and the oila is a zachar? So the Gemara says, the animal has a tail, and the tail hides whether it's a zachar or a keva. The Gemara says, that's all good if you're bringing a kesev or a keves. What if it's a seira? The seira doesn't have the tail, and if that's the case, you can have no way of knowing. The Gemara says, true. We're looking out to protect you. We want you to be protected, not to be embarrassed. If you decided to go ahead and to bring a seira as opposed to a kifsa, you had a way out. You had a way to protect yourself. You could have brought the keves. You decided to bring the seira, and being decided to bring the seira, it's for that reason. This is not on our cheshbon. Said Rabbi Cheskel Alevi Me'Ostrovtza that you see in this Gemara. You see in this Gemara that when a person brought his chatas with a seira, as opposed to bringing it with a kifsa, there was a boishes that he got, which gave him a certain madrega of kaparas avainas. It even sounds like the etzem, the Torah would have told you that's really what you should do. But the Torah had rachmanis on you, and the Torah said you don't have to do it. If you want to bring a kifsa, you can bring a kifsa. Oh, but that's passion in the world of kapara, in the world of sigufim, in the world of tikkunim. Boishes is mechaper, ba'ofen nifla v'noira ad lama'oi. When the Yid brought the seira, he had boishes. When the Yid brought the kifsa, the nishka had kam boishes. And being that in this case he had the boishes, in this case he didn't have the boishes. So it's for that reason there's a mile of going ahead and bringing the snira season. Just one more ha'ara from this beautiful shtickle that he said over. At the very, very end, he says, Achrei kosvias kol zeh. He said, I remembered that there's a Rashi in Chumash, a Rashi in Parshas Lech Lecha, Rashi by the Bris Bein Absarim. Hashem tells Avraham Avinu by the Bris Bein Absarim, Vayomer Elav, Choli egla mishuleshes, ve'ez mishuleshes, va'ayil mishulosh, v'tar v'goysel. Kadosh Baruch Hu essentially told Avraham Avinu to take all the animals that one day would be able to be brought as karbanos. Take the egel, take the ez, take the ayil, which is the male keves, take the tar, and take the geisel. Right? These are all the animals that are able to go on the mizbech. In fact, Rashi says that the reason Hashem told Avraham Avinu to take this was a remiss to all the different karbanos. Egla mishuleshes shloisha golim, remiss l'shloisha parim, parim akipurim, parim davash al tzibur, ve'egla arufa. Ve'ez mishuleshes, remiss l'sira nasa b'fnim, u'si'irei musafin shal moyed, u'si'ires chatas yochid. Va'ayil mishulesh, osham vadai, va'osham taloi, v'kivso shal chatas yochid. V'tar v'goizel, that's the Torah in the Ben Yoino. So he said he always learned this Rashi, that why was it the Eibush the first said ve'ez mishuleshes and then the ayol mishulesh? So he said he always assumed it was because the E's are all chatois. It's the remes, the Sara nasa b'fnim, and it's the sirei musafin and the sirei chatas yochid. As opposed to the ayol mishulesh, that's the osham vadai, it's the osham talui, which are both ashamis. So the reason we said Eis Mushuleshes before Ayol Mushulish, because one is a Chatos, other was an Osham, and in Perikalatoder Menachis Tav Peites, Chatos is Koidemes LaOsham. And being that Chatos is Koidemes LaOsham, so it made sense, first Eis Mushuleshes and then Ayol Mushulish, all the Eis, all the Korbanis that the Eis represent. But he said, always mutched me a little bit, because one of the Ayol Mushulishes is the Kivsa Shal Chatos Yochid. Das is Eichet HaChatos. So if das is Eichet HaChatos, they're both Chatos. So he says, no, Pshat is, these are three chatois. This is one chatas and two ashamois. So the three chatois are going to come first. But he says, Achri kol zeh, I realize that ma meduyik, because even that kivsa shal chatas yochid comes after the serious chatas yochid. Kimavu b'zayir HaKadosh. Kimavu the dik and the psukim with the tushal to the Rambam Perek Tesel Chasmidim HaMusafin with a little bit of a hezber based on the Gemara in Soita Daf Lamed Beis, that when it comes to the serious chatas yochid versus the kivsa shal chatas yochid, the series of Chatas Yochid also comes first, and that's why even in the Bris Bein Absarim, every cheluk of this Rashi is meduyik. Remes l'sara nasa b'fnim v'sir musavin shal moed u'siras Chatas Yochid. All three of them are koydem to the Osham Vadai, the Osham Talui, and the Kivsa shal Chatas Yochid. Ashenegel in Yonenu, the series Chatas Yochid is koydemes to the Kivsa shal Chatas Yochid. Either way, ad kan dvarav akshdoishem in this Chibur Kodshe Yecheskel from the Ostrovtza guy. I just want to end that when Rabbi Margolis quoted the Ostrovtza Gaon, so he says Hashem Yimkom Damai, which I understood meant that he must have been the Rebbe at the time of the Holocaust, at the time of the war, and he was killed by the Nazis. So I looked at the beginning of this country's, this Chibur Kochi Yecheskel, and what I saw blew my mind. There's a little bit of a hakdama that was written by one of the Chassidim, one of the Talmidim of this great guy. His name was Chaim Yitzchak Wohlgelernt. I just want to read a little bit just to get a little bit of a feel. So this Yid, Chaim Yitzchak Wohlgelernt, lived in Ostrovca, and when the Nazis came, they killed his wife, and they killed his father, they killed his mother, and they killed his sister. And he had to run away. And he was hiding in the attic of a barn by some Polish Eina Yehudi. While he was sitting Shiva for his father, his mother, and his sister, he got word that the Nazis can finish doing their thing. They killed the Rebbe and his 7 sons. His entire family was wiped out. And he says, I'm sitting here in the middle of the Avelos, and I just got word that the Rebbe and his 7 sons were killed, and he says, I want to write a little bit of a kinnah. And this is Pulitzer Prize worthy. I can't read the whole thing because it's too long, but just mamash atoyamet to get a little bit of a sense what's going on. Rotov u'misboises. Said, I'm wet and I'm immersed. Bidmei avi imi v'achoisi. In the blood of my father, my mother, and my sister. Sheniktavu b'mei k'tzir hadamim. Who were taken away, right, at a very, very young age. Badad atov ba'avelos kfula. I'm by myself, and I'm wrapped in a double kfelos. Levavi hanikra l'gzarim. He said, not only my clothing, but my heart is torn into pieces. Yoshev ani ba'aliyas refes bakar. I'm sitting in the aliyah, in the attic of a refes bakar, of a barn. Nechba, I'm hiding. B'mistorim tifka nafshi. And in my hiding, I'm sitting and I'm crying. Nidhamti pislaim. And then all of a sudden, as this was going on, I was bewildered because I heard meharetzach hanoira shel Rabbeinu v'shiva bana b'yoyim echad imay. With the Rebbe and his 7 sons were killed on one day. That's hatura ma'ela l'zichrei hakadosh ukdashti. So these next lines, this little poetry that I'm writing, I'm being makdish. L'zeichen nishmasai. Yoshev le Rabbeinu shakua b'rayonav v'sefer hazayah lefanav. So the Rebbe would sit and he was shakua b'rayonav and he had the sefer hazayah open in front of him. Chavush tefillin b'roshai v'talisay mu'utav al kseifav. Says Shloisha Yomim Ritzufin Shari B'Tainus Masagev Gufay. Says the last time I saw him, he had been fasting already for 3 days because of the impending Gzeira, and he was trying to stop it. Kabbalah hu Isaac. He was being Isaac in Kabbalah. Limtzoi Pisrain L'Shelois HaMenakris B'Moichai. To try to come up with a Pisrain, some Eitzah to the questions that were being Menakris, that were banging on his head. Oisnoi ve'esbenoi. And if that's the case, if there's a din of Oisay Vespenoi Leisishchat B'Yom Echad, then Lama Gzeirei Reisna, how come we're witnessing this? Here Hurim Umachshavos Mitzroitzes and B'Moicha Shalois Tzadik. There were Hurim and Machshavos that were flying, they were floating around the mind of this great Tzadik. Lama Ani. Ma pa'alti b'chayi v'chiloi igal erik v'chein anachnu talmidav hamisatkim tachas hashpa'asei hakbira yimei chayav u'puloisav heim lanu l'semel mazir u'lasbaklarya ha'me'ira. And he goes on, he talks about how great he was, and he was the son of this great tzaddik. He was the ben Yochid of the famous Ostrovca Gaon. He says, maflik b'shvacham. I'm skipping all the way to the end. Mesiris nefesh, anivus his batless ho'inkios, ahavas Yisrael l'chol ish poshet v'tomim, skulois ha'ela ho'anivus upashtus, tova b'lev talmidav v'chol abam elav l'darshai, regesh tomer v'haratzam yuchedes hoyoloi l'chidushav shebenigla v'v'nista. But from all the things that he was ma'arich in life, he had a regesh, a special regesh miyuchad for his chidushim benigla v'nista, v'zuchrani be'esa machnu b'ra'asai. I remember when we got smicha, Kadavino bar Shifsar, when I was only 17 years old. Bachar bi Rabbeinu mi bein Talmidav. The Rebbe chose me from all his Talmidim l'sader chidushav u'la'atikam b'sefer. That one day I should be the one that's going to be mesader's chidushim and I'm going to put them on a sefer. Tzror maftecha shal argis aksavim masa biyadi. He says he gave me mamish the chest of all his ksavim v'sochli. And then he told me, Hey lecha Chaim Yitzchak u'shmar ki ze chelki mikol amali. He says, please watch this. He says, man ha'achroin, haredifos v'gerushim, haretzichos v'achzarios, tzaris Yisrael, churbenan dachu rucha v'nishmasai. The last kufa were very hard for him. V'yispaited Rabbeinu, the Rebbe was bespaited this, umeshaited by Ilamais haruchniim al yoinim, and he was drang sich in the Ilamais haruchniim. Kabbalah hu Isaac, he was being Isaac in Kabbalah. Umechapis pisrain le'elo in yonim aniskaven, and he was trying to come up with some pisrain for these heichas achen. Lo pesa pisain. Hey, all of a sudden, while he was trying to figure this out, Paratz ha'oyev, v'nirtzach Rabbeinu, v'shiva banav imai, hakushya shel oisev es benoi, v'gam ha'sheila ha'yeshana, hazu teira v'zu schara, lo'matzu pisroinan, adheina. I mean, the poetry is off the rails. This is what he writes. On the bottom of this is a little bit of a footnote. The footnote is that this Yid, Reb Chaim Yitzchak Wohlgeländer, he spent the rest of the war years in the attic of this Refes Bakar. And he was Moise Nefesh, he had the Ksovim with the Rebbe, and he was Masada them, and he was writing them. And then, when Poland was liberated from the Germans, he came out, and he was a free man. And he was walking around, and a Polish guy saw him, and he killed him. He killed him for no reason, but he killed him. So this Yid, Chaim Yitzchak Wohlgeländer, he too was killed by the Palakin. Yemach Shemam v'zichron. Hashem Yimkom Damai. He had a brother. His brother's name was Yaakov David. And Yaakov David knew where his brother had been hiding, and he knew that he was being Isaac in the Ksavim. And he said he went to the Ksavim, and he went to the attic, and he found it all there. And he came to America, and he made up his mind that he was going to print these Ksavim. And these are some of the Ksavim that he printed. This shtickle, Simin Yud Zayin, in Kocha Yecheskel, comes from this chibur, Sefsoisov, Doivavois, Bekever, Saisef Soisov, Shor Bicheskel, Halevni, Ben, Lagoyin Agodo, Rabbeinu Meir Yechiel, Halevi, Zechetzadeh, V'Kodesh Lavracha, and Sef Soisov, shall this Yid, Chaim Yitzchak Wohlgeländer, Reb Chaim Yitzchak ben HaKodesh, Reb Yeshaya ben Reb Yechiel, Yisomer, Zechron Lavracha, Hashem Yimkom Dama.